Good morning. This is video 2 of Lesson 1, Geography Basics, Understanding Geography in a Social Studies Context. You should be following along with your guided notes and filling in the blanks as I come across them. If you need multiple attempts, or if you just want to watch this again to make sure that you have it down, feel free. You may use this recording as much as you need to. Alright, let's get started. These are our lesson LEQs for this lesson. What are the major physical features of the Earth, and how do environmental conditions influence civilization? You should be able to answer both of these questions by the time I finish this video. I will be talking about these when I have you for class after you watch this video. The standards for this video are 7.G.1.1, 7.G.2.1, and 7.G.2.2. If you want to read further into those standards, feel free to pause the video and do so now. These are the essential vocabulary for this unit: continent, mountain range, plateau, plain, rainforest, river valley, desert, ocean, peninsula, sea, and river. You should know these words by the time we're done with this. The first word, continent, is one of the main land masses on the globe. There are 7 continents on the Earth. Number 2, mountain range. Mountain range is a series of more or less connected land masses of the globe. It's essentially a series of mountains that go along a line. Mountain is created when 2 tectonic plates run into one another, and the land is forced up into a jagged shape. A plateau is a land area having relatively level surfaces considerably raised above joining land on at least one side, often cut by deep canyons. So the plateau itself is this part up here, this flat area. A plateau is characterized by having a flat area that is raised over lower areas, such as over here. Next is a plain, an area of land not significantly higher than adjacent areas, and with relatively minor differences in elevation, commonly less than 500 feet within the air. So a plain is basically a flat area. Usually it is covered in grass, if it has not been industrialized in some way. So the plain is a flat area where there's no major hills, major mountains. Elevational differences are less than 500 feet. Next is a rainforest. The rainforest is a tropical forest, usually of tall, densely growing, broad-leaved evergreen trees in an area of high annual rainfall. The evergreen is a tree that does not lose its leaves in the fall. They keep their green leaves all year long, which is why they're called evergreens. Rainforests are typically found in the tropics, the area around the equator, the most famous being the Amazon, but there are other rainforests in the world. A rainforest also includes some of the highest amounts of biodiversity in the world, having many different kinds of flora and fauna, or plants and animals, within their confines. Next is a river valley, the valley formed by a flowing river. These you should have heard of already. Last year, when you talked about the Egyptians, the Indians, Chinese, you would have talked about how they made their original settlements around areas called river valleys, because the rivers would flood annually, usually, and cause the land around the river to become very fertile and be able to grow a significant amount of food. That's where the original civilization set up, because they didn't know how to do irrigation. So a river valley is, as its name says, a valley or an area between 2 elevated spaces formed by a flowing river, where the river has worn away over time to create the valley. Next is a desert. Desert is a region so arid because of little rainfall that it supports only sparse and widely spaced vegetation or no vegetation at all. The most famous of the deserts is the Sahara. However, there's the Gobi Desert and the Mojave Desert here in the U.S. Deserts are areas that get so little rainfall, not a lot to live there. There are things that do live in the desert. There are animals and plants that have adapted themselves to living in the desert, but they're few and far between. If rainforests are the highest biodiversity areas on the globe, deserts tend to be the least biodiverse areas on the globe because so few things can survive there. After that, we have the ocean. The oceans are vast bodies of seawater or salt water. The vast body of salt water that covers almost three-fourths of the Earth's surface. There are currently five oceans on the globe: the Arctic, the Indian, the Atlantic, and the Pacific, as well as the Southern Ocean. These oceans are essentially what make up most of the world. Most of our planet has no land; it has water. A peninsula is an area of land almost completely surrounded by water, except for an isthmus connecting to the mainland. So a peninsula is a area of land that sticks out in the water, but it's still connected to the mainland. Florida is an example of a peninsula where the bottom of Florida sticks out into the ocean, and the but the Panhandle is still connected to mainland U.S. The sea is a division of the saltwater that covers a greater portion of the Earth's surface, more or less marked off by land boundaries. So the ocean frames most of our continents. It's so vast in terms of so much surface area that it frames most of our continents. For the most part, your continents are determined, divisions of continents are determined by having an ocean or a sea between them. Now, a sea is marked off by land boundaries. One of the more famous seas is the Mediterranean, which is between the southern coast of Europe and the northern coast of Africa and the western coast of Asia Minor. Those land boundaries mark the boundaries of the sea. However, it's still salt water, ocean, it's still ocean water, but it's a sea because it is marked off by land boundaries. The sea surrounds, the ocean surrounds continents. The sea is surrounded by land. The river is a natural stream of water, a fairly large size, flowing in a definite course or channel, or series of diverging and converging channels. So a sea, as you can see, a sea or a river, as you can see, flows in one direction, and sometimes it will come to what's called a channel, which is a split where one part of the river goes one way, another part of the river goes the other way. So these are channels. This is also a channel. It's a single channel where it is following this channel down, and then it can split into multiple channels along the way. A river it's the larger freshwater areas of the globe. So that marks all of our essential vocabulary for it. That's all of the essential vocabulary. You should be able to identify the major physical features of the Earth now. If you could not before, you can now. Now we're going to move on to how humans impact the environment. It's human geography. So for human geography, we have three things that we look at. We look at how humans use, modify, and adapt to their environment. Now, modify and adapt seem like they would be the same thing. The two words are very similar. However, there's a major difference that I'll talk about in just a minute. And we're going to be looking at three questions. How do humans use their environment? How do humans modify their environment? And how do humans adapt to their environment? So, let's begin. When we look at human use, or humans using, humans use the natural material around them to help create items that help them survive. So examples of this would be clothing, which helps regulate our temperature so we survive. Dwellings, which give us a safe place to sleep. Animals, which are used to create clothing to feed us, so on and so forth. Vegetation, which can feed us and feed the animals to keep them alive, so on and so forth. Humans use natural materials all the time. Even when we're creating synthetic materials, we're creating those out of natural materials. Things like plastic, which are synthetic, are created using fossil fuels like oils to be refined and molded into plastic. Next is humans modify. Humans change the environment to meet their needs. So this is how you this is how you look at modification. Modification is us as humans changing our environment to meet our needs. So examples are things like dwellings where we're in a forest. We can't just sleep on the ground and we sleep on the ground with our heads exposed to the air, so we change the environment. We chop down trees. And we clear land to create houses. So we have changed the environment to meet our needs using natural material. We change the environment when we, shave a sheep to make clothing. When we kill a deer to use its leather. Any time that we take something out of the environment or we make the environment change what it would be without humanity, we have modified the environment. Another major example of this is called terrace farming. Terrace farming is practiced in almost every mountain community in the world because it's really hard to farm on a mountain. It's hard to farm on an incline. So terrace farming is basically cutting out a chunk of the mountain to make a flat area. You're cutting out a small chunk to create a flat area so you can plant. And terrace farming is cutting out a chunk, going up a little bit, taking out another chunk, and keep going with that to create multiple areas to plant food. Another example is dams, where you create an area that holds back water to either you can create a man-made lake, you can use it, humans have used it to modify their environment to make an area livable. The only area you can really live in is something underwater. You build a dam so it can't go anywhere, or you're building a dam to create hydroelectric power, which is the Hoover Dam, things like that, where we change the environment to meet our needs. Now, this is drastically different from adapting to our environment. So when we adapt by changing our behavior to meet human needs. So modifying is changing the environment, adapting is changing ourselves. So examples of this are when we create complex tools for hunting or storage, when we take animal skin and adapt it to make clothing, irrigation, things like that. So things like hunting, humans are not natural predators. We're considered apex predators because we have advanced thought processes, advanced reasoning, we have the capacity to use tools. However, we don't have any natural ability to hunt. Hunting requires some sort of tool because we don't have claws. massive teeth. We don't have extreme speed, extreme strength. Compared to most animals in the world, we're actually pretty weak. However, we have the capacity to create tools for hunting that allow us to adapt our behavior to the environment. You can't take out a deer, you can't catch a deer? Fine, we'll make a bow and shoot the deer. You are being attacked by bears. You create traps to keep the bears away. Animal skins are great for clothing. However, you can't just skin an animal and throw the skin on you to make clothing. You have to adapt the skins to create clothing such as pants, shoes, skirts, shirts, whatever. Irrigation is when you don't live near an ocean or a body of water, but you need water to water your crops. You will say, okay, and create a thing, create pipes or make ditches to bring the water to you. This is adaptation. So once more, humans use, modify, and adapt to our environment. So that is basics of human geography. Now you should be able to answer the LEQ. How do environmental conditions influence civilization? Influence civilization by forcing us to use, modify, and adapt. Now, that is the end of our lesson for today. Please go complete the assignment, as also in this module. It is due Tuesday, September 1st at 11:59 p.m. If you need to continue to go through this video, please do so. You should have completed your guided notes. If you have not, please complete them, and they will be turned in on Tuesday alongside your assignment. Please make sure with your guided notes that you not only download a copy to turn in on Canvas, you also place a copy into your interactive notebook on OneNote. Thank you very much. Have a great day.